Hey everyone! So today's video is kind of a get to know me chat session. My channel is still relatively new and I wanted to tell you all a little bit about myself and some of my thoughts on things bookish. I would love to hear your answers to all of these questions as well. I only have like a few, I don't want to make this too long. Any of the things I talk about, I want to hear your thoughts, so leave them in the comments. So about me, my name's Emily. And I'm 33, I live in Pennsylvania, and my full-time job is an engineer for a manufacturing company. So I do have like a 9-to-5 job, so I read as a hobby. And it is the one thing that I have found that actually does like relax me and like helps with stress, because it's nice to escape to like a fictional world and not have to think about life. So that is why I read. I do read, I would say, relatively fast, but I have my moments. Like, I'm kind of in a book slump right now, so I may not read as many books this month as I have the past few, and that's okay. So with that being said, I'll talk about the one book series that actually got me into reading when I was younger. I hated being told what to read in school. I hated reading textbooks, so I had a lot of teachers that thought I didn't like to read at all. And when Harry Potter came out, it was like my world. I can't tell you how many times I've read that series over and over. And it was when I was old enough, because for I think book 1 and 2, I wasn't really old enough to read on my own yet at that level. But by the time 3 came out, I was, and I would go to the midnight release parties. My parents would take me to the midnight release parties. I'd get my book, I'd go home, and I would not sleep until I finished it. So that is what got me into reading. So I love fantasy. On top of that, some other favorite genres, fantasy romance, but it doesn't have to be. I'm okay with like a high fantasy book as well. Thrillers are a big love of mine, and I do like a good romance novel to kind of be I hate saying a palate cleanser because I don't want to discount anyone's books, but mind-wise, it's a palate cleanser for me because it's just a nice fluffy book that makes me feel happy. So that's what I look for in a palate cleanser. My favorite authors, I would say J.K. Rowling, but I've never read anything outside of Harry Potter, so I can't really say she's my favorite as an author. I just love that series. But Sarah J. Maas, I've read every one of her books, as I'm sure most people have, and I adore her writing. When it comes to fantasy, she's the one that sticks out for me. There are other series I like, but I just think that the way she tells a story and the way she interweaves all of her different series is just mastermind. So she's probably my favorite fantasy author at this moment. When it comes to thriller authors, I have a few more that make up an actual list, I guess, rather than just like one. So I'm a huge fan of Ruth Ware. I've read all of her backlist. Alice Feeney, I've read all but I think her newest release. Lucy Foley. And I've started to like Taylor Adams' books. I've been reading quite a few of his. And I read my first Riley Sager, and I think he's quickly going to become a favorite. I just loved his writing style. But we'll see. I've only read one. Those are probably my favorite thriller authors. Romance, I love Lucy Score, and Ashley Poston is quickly becoming another favorite because I've only read 2 of her books. I don't think she has many more out, but they've been probably my 2 favorite romances I've ever read, so she definitely belongs on that list. When it comes to tropes, like a true fantasy romance girl, I love a good enemies to lovers. But when it comes to romance, I definitely prefer like friends to lovers, childhood friends to lovers, second chance kind of tropes. I'm not huge on accidental pregnancy or single parent trope. If it's done well, I'm okay with it, but I don't seek out books that have that as a trope. And along with romance, let's talk spice. So I'm okay with spice in books. I know some people don't like it. They skim it, they skip it. And that's fine. That's completely your own comfort level. I like it as long as it doesn't take away from the story. There have been a few books that I've had to stop reading because the spice was just either uncomfortable for me because of the content in it, or it was just too much and I either skimmed it or I stopped reading the book. So I'm like a moderate spice level. I don't mind that it's in there, but I don't want it to be the point of the story. So when it comes to paperback, hardback, or Kindle, I really don't have a preference. I think I read faster on my Kindle. I know a lot of people think that, and I think it's just because it's so easy to click through, but I do love a physical book. When it comes to paperback or hardback, I don't really have a preference. I am definitely a removes the dust jacket to read a hardback girl. I cannot read a hardback book with the dust jacket on because I think it slides and I don't like it. I don't care much to like make sure that every book in a series is the one type of book. I have a few that I have mixes of. If it's not a series I truly, truly care about, I'm not going to care that I have mixed media there. And I do love my Kindle. I have Kindle Unlimited, so I read a lot of like romances on there. There's a lot of good romance on Kindle Unlimited, and I don't tend to buy those books that often because thriller and fantasy are my two main genres, but I do like having Kindle Unlimited because it is nice to be able to go pick up like a Elsie Silver book. I saw they just put The Binding 13 and Keeping 13 on there, and I've been wanting to read those, so I figure I can at least read, I think those were the only two in the series that were on there, so I figure I can read at least the first one, and if I like it enough, I'll buy the books. All of Lucy's scores, for the most part, I believe are on there, so I do get a nice taste of romance on Kindle Unlimited, so I do love that. The other method of consuming books is audiobooks. This is completely my opinion. All of this is my opinion. I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I don't count audiobooks as a read book. But I don't listen to them in order to like up my book count. I listen to them because I live an hour away from where I work. So I spend a lot of time in the car, and audiobooks and podcasts are what get me by. So I personally don't count them. I do not judge people that do. That is completely fine. But I don't feel like I consume them in a way that I can say I've read the book, because I'm not usually paying attention 100% of the time. So that's my opinion on that. I really can only listen to romance and nonfiction. I cannot listen to fantasy and I cannot listen to thrillers on audiobook because I don't pay attention well enough. Some, I guess I would say hot takes I have on things that I think the book industry should consider are when you get a DVD, or when you bought DVDs, you would get like a digital code to go online and you'd be able to have a digital copy of the movie that you bought physically. I think books should come with that. I think every physical book should come with a code that you can either go onto your Kindle, your Nook, whatever you have, or just the app, and be able to download the e-copy of it to have alongside the hard copy. You already paid for the hard copy. You're probably more times than not paying more for the hard copy. So I think it should come with a e-copy code with it. Personal opinion. I also think all books should come out in hardback and paperback at the same time. There are countries that don't even have hardback books, so I don't know why in America a lot of authors, not all of them, but a lot of authors feel like they have to release hardback and then you have to wait a year if you want the paperback. I don't like that, because I think if you want one or the other, you're going to buy one or the other. And if you release them both at the same time, your sales are going to be better because you're going to get people that prefer a paperback that are going to buy the book right away rather than wait a year and buy it. Again, that's my hot take on that. Another thing that people I've seen talk about a lot are breaking a spine of a book, dog-earing pages, even like annotating and stuff. I know some people don't like that because you're writing in a book. I don't care. If you borrow my book and you dog-ear the page or you break the spine, I'm gonna be mad. But if I do it to my own book, I'm not a dog-eared person. I am a bookmark person through and through, but I don't care if people want to dog-ear their own books. Just don't do it to someone else's. So when it comes to annotating, I want to annotate the entire Harry Potter series this year. I will obviously buy a set that is not my current set, which are first editions. I'm not going to write in those because that just like, that pains me to like, I've never fully annotated a book. I've definitely tabbed, but I've never fully annotated a book because writing and highlighting in a book, I couldn't even do it in my textbooks. So that's going to be a feat for me this year, is if I do end up buying another copy of the Harry Potter series and annotating it, that will be a first for me. I love people that do. I wish I knew more about like exactly what to write, what to underline, but I feel like that'll come to me, in the series I felt like it would come to me more naturally with was Harry Potter. So that's why I want to do it with that series. I've seen a lot of people recently posting about how they're trying to read the classics because they feel like they're a reader and they need to read the classics. I don't necessarily think that. I think you read what you like. And if Pride and Prejudice doesn't sound interesting to you, don't feel like you have to read it. If War and Peace doesn't sound interesting to you, you don't have to read it. Classics are classics for a reason. They stood the test of time, but I think that there's books now that we're reading that will eventually be considered classics. So spend the time reading the books you want to read. Don't let other people's opinions about what books, like real readers have read these, I just don't let that get to me. So on that topic, when it comes to deciding whether or not to read a book off of other people's ratings, I will ask for suggestions. I know friends of mine that read the same kind of books as me, like the same kind of books as me. I found booktubers that I know if they read a book and they like it, I will probably like it. But I've also had a lot of them that have liked a lot of books I have and hated something, and then when I read it, I loved it. So I think it doesn't even matter if you have the same taste as somebody. There could be one book that you actually adore, and for the same reasons you love it, they hate it. My opinion is that you should go into a book and make your own opinion of it. Don't let somebody else's rating or thoughts on it bother you. Don't let it convince you not to read a book, because what do they say? One man's trash is another man's treasure. I think it's the same thing with a book. One person's 1 star is another person's 5. So make up your own mind. We're all individual humans and we can think for ourselves. So I don't let a bad rating sway my reading. And on the other side of that, I've read books that everybody has loved. 5 stars, no thoughts about it. Like Yellowface, I think, was one I read recently. And also Tomorrow. I still rated Tomorrow pretty high, but it was not like an easy 5-star read for me. I actually hated the characters. I enjoyed the story, but I hated the characters. And Yellowface made me so uncomfortable the whole time. I think I gave it like a 3-star. Those are books a lot of people have rated high, and I did not particularly like. So my opinion's my opinion. You don't have to have the same one as me. All right, just a few more here. I wrote down one POV versus multi-POV. I can read one. I can read multi. I can read third person. It doesn't really bother me. When it comes to a romance, I prefer dual POV. Like, I like both main characters' perspective. I don't like when you just hear from one character in a romance. I like to hear from both of them. When it comes to fantasy, that is the one thing I will say Sarah J. Maas did a lot in the Throne of Glass series, is that she had, the further along you got in the series, the more point of views that were added. And I think it got confusing at times, and not confusing, but like, I don't like it because I don't feel like it's ever evenly spaced. Like, you're not getting a chapter with this person, a chapter with number 2, a chapter with number 3, and then back to number 1. Like, it could be like 3 chapters with one point of view, and then you're jumping back to 1, and then you're back to the same one with 3 more chapters. I just don't like that. I can't predict who I'm going to be following. So I think you can overdo it on the multiple point of view. And in a fantasy book where there's already a lot going on, I think that can be difficult. I believe not only Throne of Glass, but Game of Thrones, I believe, is written the same way. I've never read the books. I've seen the show. And the show is kind of like that. You're following all these different storylines. That, I think, can easily derail somebody, or at least me, in a fantasy novel when you're trying to learn a whole new world and system. So next one is music while reading. I cannot. The next 2 are ones that I'm actually jealous of. So I cannot listen to music with words while I'm reading. The people that can, I envy you, because I would love to be able to do that. I'd love to be able to listen to a playlist that follows the book, the mood of the book. I would love that, but I can't. I can listen to like white noise kind of stuff and classical music. That's it. That's all I can listen to when I'm reading. And for the most part, I just prefer silence. I'm jealous of those that can, but that's where I land on that. And the last one I'm going to talk about is people reading multiple books at one time. My sister is like this. She will be in the middle of 3 different romance books and 2 like nonfiction books at the same time. I can't do that. I start a book and I finish it, and then when I'm done with it, I move on. I can, and I have done like a nonfiction book while I'm reading fiction books, because I'll read like a chapter or 2, but I don't get those very confused. So because they're so different, I can do that. When it comes to like fantasy, I don't understand how people can be in the middle of 3 fantasy books at one time and know what the hell's going on. I don't. Again, jealous of people that can, but I'm a 1 book at a time kind of girl. Those are some quick facts about me, some thoughts on some bookish things, I guess. And if you have any other questions for me, you can leave them in the comments below and I will answer them there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these topics. Let me know. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you disagree with me. I love hearing other people's point of views and why you maybe think one way or another. I enjoy that. So maybe you'll make me think differently of one of these because you said something I didn't think of. Let me know your thoughts. I'm hoping this will be a quick one. But thanks for tuning in if you've made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.